Hello, my name is Jasmine Keys, and you are listening to Why, How, Impact, the series that breaks down what it takes to be a leader and why on earth they do it. Today's trailblazer is Stephanie McCarty, the CMO of Taylor Morrison, one of the largest home building companies in America. You've been leading the C-suite since you were just 33. You're a board member for Sicilian Partners. You're on the advisory board for Zillow. And on top of all of that, you're a mother of three. I have no idea how you manage all of that. And I'm sure everyone listening is dying to hear what really gets you going. So thank you so much for joining us, Stephanie.
Thank you for having me.
So let's get right into that. What gets you going? What motivates you to have your hands so full?
I think if you think about having dogs, they say a bored dog is a bad dog, right? So I actually really enjoy being busy. I am motivated by making an impact, and I've been very fortunate throughout my career to have worked for leaders and within organizations that have allowed me the autonomy to be me and be creative and try a lot of different things. And so my path has just taken me from one great company to the next. And Taylor Morrison has been home for me for almost 10 years. And I just focused on doing really great work. And I think as a leader, that's always been my motto. If you focus on great work and you keep that fire in your belly lit, good things, good opportunities, more responsibility tends to come your way.
And what is great work to you? How did you find your why?
Well, I found my why, I would say, a few different ways. I went through a series of tragedy and loss in my early 20s. I lost both my parents and my sister. And so you have to take a real look at your life and what you want it to stand for and what you want it to mean. And I wanted to live a life that not only I was proud of, but that my immediate family would be proud of too. And so I just really started investing in learning. I have a journalism background. I was always writing. And my first two jobs, I'd say my two big girl jobs out of college, were in executive communication functions, writing on behalf of Fortune 500 CEOs, helping them to articulate their vision, their growth strategies to thousands of employees. And I think that entrance or emergence, if you will, into marketing, it has kind of created this marketing from the inside out and building a brand from within, and proving that brands, if they're built that way, can kind of stand the test of time and go through tragedy or trauma or adversity. And it feels like on a personal level, I was able to show that is true. And so being able to apply those learnings from a very personal kind of grieving place, that it's very applicable in business. And so in home building, we're a very cyclical industry, right? Cycles come and go. Interest rates come and go. There's so many economic factors that hinder or can get in the way of our ability to sell homes and build homes. With COVID, there was a ton of supply chain issues. And so being able, I think, from a personal level, to know that those things can't knock me down, I can apply that same belief and strategy through the written word, and through creativity to bring businesses out of those hardships too. And so in some kind of weird way, my own personal journey has really impacted how I approach my work within the business world as well.
Well, I'm so sorry to hear that. You've made such an incredible impact already. So I look forward to kind of seeing what comes from you and your leadership as we move through this chat. I studied journalism as well, actually, and ended up in this sort of role. So I wonder, what was it that moved you into corporate comms rather than the traditional path in journalism?
Yeah, it's a great question. Well, in journalism school, I did several internships. I was at first interested in print, but I couldn't, it was hard to actually get internships in print. So I got a broadcast internship. and was okay at it. Didn't love it, didn't hate it, but I got really close with the assistant news director at our local CBS affiliate. And he was like, "You're a really great writer. Have you ever explored, media relations or PR?" And so it wasn't really something that I had thought through. So my next semester, I did an internship with their media relations department and loved it, and found that I actually was able to write more than on the broadcast side. And so I don't want to say I fell into it, but by guidance through a mentor, I pivoted into more of a media and corporate communications lens. And then when I graduated, you're kind of putting your name out there and your resume out there. And my first employer ended up being a semiconductor in the manufacturing space. And I walked in there very honest to my first boss and said, "I have no idea what a semiconductor does or is, but I am a fast learner. I'm a hell of a writer, and I know I'll be able to do this job." And I think that kind of honest vulnerability, transparency clearly meant something to him. And it was after going through 6 or 7 interviews where I felt like I did all my research, was prepared for every question, but still didn't get the job. So when I showed up my true and honest self is when I think the opportunities started to become more tangible and present themselves. And so I've shared that story with a lot of my employees, that nothing bad can come from being who you are and being honest and being open to possibilities, but also just knowing in your heart and in your gut, what your superpowers are, and not being afraid to show those. And so I think coming to that realization somewhat early on kind of fueled me to continue to grow and move from company to company.
That actually leads us quite smoothly on to the next section of the chat, which is all about the how. Here we want to talk about your leadership style and how you're able to successfully lead such a large team. So in a few words, how do you lead? What's your leadership style, Stephanie?
I think my leadership is very, my goal is to mobilize my team toward a vision, and then let them execute with autonomy and creativity. I think as a leader, the most important thing you can do is hire really great people who are smarter than you, and then get out of their way. I think as the chief marketing officer over the larger department, it is my job to make sure that vision is crystal clear and that the obstacles have been removed, so that my team can execute. Speed is something that is really critical today in business and certainly in marketing, because things change so quickly. So I think that's worked for me. It's trusting the people that you hire to do really great work. I have very high standards, and my team knows that. And being a trained journalist, I also have an eagle eye. So extra spaces, missing periods, typos, my team hates it, but I catch it within a second. And it's not because I'm looking for it. It's just how my eyes have been trained. But I really feel like if you hire the right people and you get out of their way, that's when, true magic can happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel that eagle eye myself as well.
It's like a blessing and a curse. But
it's almost frustrating. It's impossible to look at something without being like, oh, come on.
Seriously, it's really good,
but oh dear, I'm glad it's not just me. So a really clear leadership style there, and I think having high standards is absolutely essential when you're leading such a large team. You have to be the example, and you have to set a standard. So did that come to you immediately? Did you always have those really high standards, and how have you refined your leadership style throughout the years? How has it developed?
I have always had really high standards for myself. And I've always kind of taken that lens of, I don't want to pass on anything that I've worked on to anyone else for review unless I know it is the best that I could do. And so it was almost like this weird realization when I I came to find out that maybe not everyone really operates that way. Like good enough sometimes is good enough, and people will just get it off their plate. And so I have used that as an opportunity to help level up some of my team members, right? I report to the CEO. I would never send her something that I didn't feel like was ready to be put out into market. So why should my team members send anything to me that they feel isn't a reflection of their best effort? And so I think through coaching and mentoring and helping people see through that lens, I've been able to level up a lot of my team members to think that way. I think in communications, particularly, and in marketing, you need to be able to anticipate the needs of the organization and your leaders before they realize the need. And so that takes a lot of forward thinking, a lot of planning. And I've been told many times that people don't always think the same way you do, Stephanie. And so it is kind of my obligation to help people see the world the way that I do. And the things that I have harnessed or perfected to help me, I think, position myself in ways that have allowed some of these great opportunities and larger roles and bigger responsibilities to present themselves. I'm the first CMO at Taylor Morrison. There's never been that role. But I'd say before that, almost every role I've been in, I was stepping into a role that was newly created. And so I've never stepped into a box that was fully defined, or there were footsteps that I had to like kind of squeeze my feet into. There's never been those footsteps, which I think in retrospect is quite amazing. So every position I've had with every company, I've been able to create the role, create the value. And that obligation and importance, I think, has also fueled me to just continue to raise the bar against myself, right? How much better can I be? How much more creative can I be when I look at a business problem and find the right solution? And so I think continuing to just level up yourself or one up yourself, right? You're your own greatest competition. I think there's a great obligation and opportunity to mentor the next generation to think that way, right? And if you do that early on and repeatedly, I mean, I've seen some of my leaders really grow. I call them I'm married to a very big Star Wars fan, so I have several little Padawans, that little proteges, if you will, that are starting to see the world a little bit different. But to see them grow and think differently and evolve as a strategic business partner is a moment of pride for sure.
I find it really interesting the way that you said that you've created roles for yourself, and I wondered, is there any more you can add on like how you've done that, or why you think that's come across the way that you've been able to identify gaps in the organizational structure, or maybe gaps in the market that you weren't hitting? Tell us a little bit more about that.
Absolutely. I think it's happened several times, but I think the one that's most prominent is kind of the current opportunity I'm in with Taylor Morrison. I was hired as the organization's first vice president of corporate communications. And I was hired under the edict of, I had a CEO that was on this tremendous growth strategy. And she knew, without knowing exactly how, that through the power of communication, she could get this organization rowing in the same direction and believing her vision and outperforming themselves, right? And so I said, absolutely. And we had such a wonderful kind of 3-hour interview process where we talked about the power of communication. And she hired me and put me in my seat and said, go forth. And so I had to create the infrastructure, the channels, the mediums, the relationships to be able to communicate on behalf of a Fortune 500 large organization where there wasn't any infrastructure or frequency or any kind of consistency with voice. There was no real employer value proposition, how we talked about our own culture. So setting those up, I was in that role for about 3.5 years. And in that 3.5 years, as I started to kind of show the organization, the impact of communications, Cheryl, my boss, started pulling me into other opportunities to do that, right? So I started helping her with her scripts and prepared remarks for investor calls. I started obviously helping her with her thought leadership outside of the organization. And with that, after 3.5 years of really being involved with all of our key stakeholders, and in our world, sales and marketing were kind of one unit, which meant that sales got all the attention and marketing got whatever was left. And I just told her, almost just as a pure observation, unfiltered, saying that there's so much opportunity to make an impact with how we speak to our consumers and our future customers. And that I was going to look into ways that we can do that in a more impactful way. Because I just saw an opportunity. I was going to take it back to my team and figure out from a communication standpoint what we could do, what we could influence. And I think it was like 4 or 5 months later, I got to sit down with Cheryl, and she's like, what do you think about Chief Marketing Officer? And I was like, I think that's an important role. What about it? And she's like, how would you like to be that? And I remember going home that night telling my husband, I was like, I think I just got a promotion to the C-suite, but I'm not entirely sure. He's like, how do you not know? I'm like, well, it just happened very, easily. And so I came into work the next day and I said, well, what does that mean? Because I had been at University of Phoenix for about 6 years prior. And in my tenure there, I saw lots of CMOs come in and out. Mm-hmm. So I said, I don't really want to sign myself up for a job that I'm going to lose in a couple of years. And she was just, not ever having had a CMO on her staff, was flabbergasted at that comment. Said, why would I would never do that to you. And I know that you will define what a CMO means in this industry and then blow that up and create something special. And so I think having the possibility and opportunity to create what it means to be a CMO at Taylor Morrison, and in a very kind of antiquated, male-dominated space, was a challenge I was signing up for that I didn't have a full appreciation for at the time. But now, almost 6 years into it, it takes a lot of characteristics that I was sharing with you earlier that I think have made me kind of the perfect candidate for the position. That grit, the fearlessness, the resilience to be able to push through adversity and challenges. Because let me tell you, people don't want me to rock the boat or do things differently or market the organization differently or talk about branding, because that's not something that our industry is really focused on for decades. So it was like pushing a boulder uphill for many years. And now I've gotten very good at just picking those boulders up and tossing them over my shoulder. But that's through repetition of kind of knowing who you are, understanding the impact ahead and opportunity, and learning how to really, as a communicator, communicate that and sell people on the vision. So, painting that picture of what's on the other side of the work. And so I believe, looking backwards, connecting all those dots, that I was perfectly positioned to be the first CMO at Taylor Morrison and to take that on, because it has not been easy, but it has been a lot of fun.
You and Cheryl sound like a really mean team. I love it. I absolutely love it.
I do too. I've talked to a lot of CMOs, and they're like, you have what every CMO wants. You've got the buy-in from the CEO, you've got the trust, and the open space to try things, to be creative, to push boundaries. And that's really exciting to me. And I think in our world, right, we just paint this perfect picture of a home where everything's in the right place and it's just waiting for this perfect situation to come. And I think that that's not realistic. And so, life isn't perfect. Life is messy. Homes are messy. I have 3 children, and something about having that third one, like, you just can't contain the mess. So you just have to embrace the mess. But that's what people want to see, right? And, when you move into a new home, it's not always for the most wonderful, beautiful moments in life. It's not always because of a marriage or a new baby. Sometimes it's, through divorce, or you become a widow, or like life is messy. And so being an honest and open brand that sees people, all of them, warts and all, I think is what makes my job and my position so impactful, is that we can see those insights from customers and then apply that immediately to how we sell, how we speak to people, how we present the brand, and knowing that we're there for them for the good times and the bad times.
Yeah. And I think, that's the Taylor Morrison's legacy, right? So I guess then my question is, what's Stephanie McCarty's legacy? What do you want to leave behind?
I think uh, as long as I'm doing impactful work and I'm making a difference in people's lives and I'm making customers feel better about their decision to purchase a Taylor Morrison home, a home is somewhere where you're going to make memories for the rest of your life. You're going to raise your children. Good things are going to happen there. Bad things are going to happen there. And those memories stay with you forever. And so I do think it's a very, very important job, one to take seriously, but not too seriously. And I think it's also creating and leading the next generation of, Stephanies and helping them to see the world the way that I do. Hopefully not by experiencing direct loss and tragedy, but I do think, um, being very honest and open with my team, sharing the things that they need so that they could be a better leader and grow is also part of my legacy. I want to know that if I were to ever leave Taylor Morrison, that next generation of creatives and marketing and communication professionals can take the reins and do it just as well, if not better.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. That was really beautiful. And you've been really candid with us, and I seriously appreciate that. It's so real, it's so honest, and it's so raw. And I look forward to seeing what's to come for Stephanie McCarty. So to our listeners, thank you for tuning in. Why How Impact is a weekly conversation with our 2024 Trailblazing Women. So make sure you subscribe and tune in next week as we continue to explore what it takes to be a leader and the powerful why behind it all. Until then, keep striving to find what motivates you and be kind while you do it. I'm Jasmine Keys, and this is Why How Impact. I'll see you next week.